Here we go. Well, hello everyone. Greetings, and I'm here again, and it's been quite a journey for me. Um, I'm going to just kind of setting things up still. So, welcome back to. I don't know what I want to call it. It's the One Consciousness Journal. But it's with Adam Abraham. I'm the one who is kind of behind this activity, and I'm the one who's got some ideas that are worth still. I'm going to say living in this particular framework for, and I'll get into what I mean by that. Oh boy, what has been going on? And I titled this "Back in the Saddle." And I have been getting notifications of subscribers, for example, on YouTube. Uh, I don't have a big following. Gosh, so for someone who posts as infrequently and randomly as I do, the fact that I've got 750 subscribers is quite frankly amazing. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful to you for seeing something in what I have shared to sign up in spite of that randomness. The randomness is something I can do something about, especially now. The last few months have been quite a journey. They've been, you might say, a rite of passage for me. I have had some significant changes in my physiology, first of all. And I will say, and right off the bat, what when I talk about my physiology, as you may or may not know, uh, I'm not talking about me. When I talk about my physiology, I'm talking about the form, the vessel, this thing here. This is the temporary, I'll call it a proxy for my presence here. And when I talk about here, now it gets into the what we think of as life and living and stuff like that. But that's part of some of the changes that um, I'd say I have been seeing in terms of my thinking about the way things are. Okay. Because frankly, the way things are being done right now, there's some major variances. There's some major holes, HOLES, in our thinking that we have and we do perpetuate as though they are truth. And so when you perpetuate, I'm going to say, an error in thinking, you can't get anything else but errors you get a cascade of errors and you get a cascade of consequences as long as you keep doing the same thing you're doing or as long as you accelerate and do even more, okay, from the standpoint of the erroneous thinking. So thinking is a major part of how we go about changing, or not even changing, creating the experiences that we are um, encountering that have become normal for us. And the point basically is that until and unless we assess those conventions of thinking, because you can't touch them, you can't feel them, you can't measure them per se. You can see the results of those thinkings. You can perceive them. We can communicate and show evidence of how we're thinking. But ultimately, the thinking itself is very powerful, very effective, and only we can change them. Now, I can't change your thoughts. You can't change mine. We can agree on certain thoughts, certain concepts, and many of those concepts have been passed on from I'm going to say generation to generation, lifetime to lifetime, eon to eon. And so, what I have basically been seeing, and I've had a good amount of time to think about, is some of the distinctions that actually are in effect that contribute to, I'm just going to say, the problems that we perpetuate in our social dynamics, in our psychological dynamics, and ultimately in our spiritual dynamics, our experiences. So I have embraced a few concepts which I will share here, and I will talk about these as we kind of go on. I'm like trying to get over to a page here, which I probably could have set up before I did, but I didn't. So, not that I expect. I did this off the cuff. I did this, you know, kind of like on the spur of the moment. But it is something I've been thinking about doing for a while and wanting to do. And for up until a few weeks ago, it was really not possible. I literally could not see, visually speaking. I had, over the past year, I've had a major reduction in the physical properties of my body, the properties of my physical form. Major reduction. And in the course of that major reduction, I also had a progression, you might say, of a cataract condition in both of my eyes. And so I was experiencing the reduction, the progressive and ongoing reduction, a steady reduction in my visual acuity. And even to the point that, from a functional standpoint, it just wasn't there. I could see certain things, but ultimately, the acuity itself, the details, the definition, oh, oh my goodness, it was just kind of going away. And well, it did. And I started taking many efforts, many ways to come about to remediate it naturally, and or should I say, natural methods to doing it. And I did not succeed. It's not that they don't work, but my way of doing it, my way of implementation, did not produce the results I was looking for. And fortunately, we were able to not only schedule, but also have a means to pay for surgeries on both of my eyes. And it was done through something called Care Credit. If anyone gets in the situation that I was in, it does allow you to pay for these types of surgeries. It's not just cataract, it's other things as well. And the organization does not charge interest. They simply charge um, a monthly fee, and at least I got it done. They paid the fee, the surgeries were done, and I'm still adjusting to it. This is still just a few weeks ago. I mean, maybe a month, okay, maybe 4 weeks ago. But not my body, well, yes, my body and my being continues to adjust to the presence of these lenses that are now inside the eyeball there. Uh, on the great side of it is that my eyesight is such that it is probably equal to or better than it was with the corrective lenses. Except on the other part of it is that close up in some points, there sometimes is some stress, and again, part of that is the newness of it. I do believe. The other thing, and so we're looking at possibly having some reading, getting some reading glasses for the close up kind of thing. But I do have them. And in addition to that, though, my body weight has gone down or went down dramatically. And I was happy about it at one point in time, except that it kept going down and kept going down, and I was trying to reverse it and hadn't figured out how to do that. And so now I think I got a handle on that. I've learned quite a bit. Now you could say it was a mistake, but I live in a place of consciousness where there are no mistakes. It just is what is. Now, ultimately, how do we learn? um, how do we get better at making choices if we don't go outside of the lines of where everyone else has been and everyone else goes, so to speak? And then you start figuring out again what is and how to address it. Everything that is not what you want, and everything that is not actually beneficial. It simply is what is right now, given the conditions of the moment, the dynamics of the moment. But as we learn ourselves, okay, we are a society that has grown accustomed to having quote unquote experts uh, do all this, to specializing in certain and specific areas of exploration. And what basically that does is it cultivates a real serious ignorance to the consequences of the actions that are taken. So what doesn't happen is the specialist does not appreciate what has happened or how their specialty and the application of their conventions affect other things which are impacted by the insinuation. And so we as beings, even this system is a whole system. Whole being WHOLE. It is one integrated system. And so everything that is put in affects everything else in one way or another. And I mean this in a constructive or an adverse manner. And yet, our society is such that we have put into practice many, many ways, many, many procedures that ultimately have, quite frankly, a devastatingly adverse impact on the system within this form. There's an ocean inside there, and there is a optimal state of everything that exists within there, specifically and especially the waters that are inside. And yet our society, generally speaking, is oblivious to that because we have grown accustomed to accepting and allowing these insinuations to be included into that ecosystem. It is an ecosystem that is filled with life, and that life behaves in a certain way. That life has an innate intelligence to it, and the stuff that we allow. I, I'm not, I'm not pointing anyone out because I did too. My parents did it too. This has been going on for several hundred years. So when we come along and someone tells us, or a parent tells us that, well, well, what's this mark for? Well, it's for this event that occurred when you were a kid. And well, I'm breathing. I'm still, I like to say, sucking air. So it must have been okay, right? And then so another generation goes by. The insinuations have continued and they've gotten a bit more draconian. But they're still sucking air, right? My son had some results from I attribute to that event when he was a kid because I allowed those things to occur, those events to occur. And they weren't the same as they were when I came up. They were, again, more drastic even then. We're talking about from 1951 to 1977. And in 1951, it had been going on for like 100 some odd years. Okay. So the 1977, more drastic, more, uh, more shock, environmentally speaking. And therefore, he ended up having something I never knew existed. It was called asthma. Now, asthma may have existed before that. I didn't know. I'd never heard of it before. I never experienced it, thank goodness. But my son did as a child. I mean, I'm talking about as an infant. Oh my God. Now, uh, time has gone on and he's gotten over that, literally, generally speaking. But then my daughter, it was something else. She came along 7 years later. All the time. This is 1985. And you know something? That was a major, major year. 1986, some legislation occurred. And, you know, something that practice of doing that thing just kind of went off the chain. And I'm talking about you're talking about draconian. We're talking about on steroids. So these are activities that have become standardized. They've become sacred cows, okay? But they do a heck of a lot more damage than any, uh, I'm just going to say cows, have ever done. And we're talking about two environments inside us. They plant seeds of conditions that have to be dealt with, and yet it seems as though they're invisible. I hear no one talking about this stuff. Okay, they do debates on the uh, the one du jour. I'm just going to say the injection du jour. They debate on, but they don't look at the whole. And in a way of speaking, there is some appropriate action to be taken. There are appropriate responses when you start seeing something and a behavior that is based on an erroneous concept. And I will say that what is referred to as germ theory, which frankly our entire um, system of physical adjudication is based on, is erroneous. It's not the way things are. And it's not the only thing. I don't want to point that out. I guess I am pointing it out, but it's not the only thing. And the thing that I am wanting to talk about, which affects everyone, I'm talking about without exception, is the concept. And I've done a few videos on this. I've done it on laptop. I've done it on TikTok. I've done it, I'm going to say quite a few, but I haven't. This thing with my eyesight was still progressing at the time. And then I haven't done, frankly, anything. In fact, today is probably one of the first times I can look at the camera. I can handle the light, for example, the intensity of it. I've driven. I had to shut all that stuff down as I've been adjusting to all this. But the point that I'm wanting to say is that our concepts, in the same way that I'm making these statements, for example, about uh, medical conventions. Our medical conventions are out of place. And I'm saying this not as a judgment. Look at the results that are happening as a result of the behavior of the conventions. When there is a term called iatrogenic as a classification of cause of what is referred to as death. I will say this and I'll explain why I say this shortly if you're not familiar with this. But I want to introduce it to our line of thinking, of social thinking. But the point is that iatrogenic basically refers to as causes of passing, causes of termination, so to speak, that are the result of properly administered medical treatment. Okay, the doctor did everything by the book, and it has. The last time I checked, I haven't paid attention to this in a while, but the last time I checked, thank you very much, Darren. The last time I checked, Iatrogenic death, so to speak, was the second or third highest cause of, I'm going to say, sudden passing, sudden passing, sudden dissociation from the form. So, where am I going with this? And thank you so much. Peace to you too. Peace to everyone. And so, but where am I going with this? What is actually going on? And it, the idea is this. I'm going to say it from the backside. We are living beings. I think most people will agree to that. We are living beings. We are beings who are what you can say among the living. Now, here's where the potential controversy in thinking is. We tend to think of ourselves as the physical form. And my contention, my suggestion is that we're not the physical form. We are the life that animates the physical form. And the physical form is not to be considered or thought of as who and what we are. Now, what are we doing in the course of our having this experience? We're accustomed to thinking exactly that. I mean, there are people who consider themselves spiritual. They say, well, I'm a spiritual being. And I used to say it the same way. It's not that I'm not a spiritual being. It's not that you're not a spiritual being. It's the fact of the matter is that sometimes we will say, I'm a spiritual being having a physical experience. Now, what does that end up functionally meaning? When we think of ourselves as having a physical experience, we then think of ourselves as the physical being who is having the physical experience, but it constrains us. The thinking constrains us to the limits of the physical form. And the physical form is limited by definition. I've been hearing you for over a decade. Thank you very much. Hey, Jack E. Johnson. Thank you. I didn't mean to call you out, but guess what? Here, I have no specs on, but actually I can read this now. So I do appreciate your thoughts and your sentiments. And the fact of the matter is, I want to help and encourage people to start seeing themselves in a different light because science, the science that we actually know or know of, I'll start off by saying the science that we have, or I'll ask you the question, do you think the science that we have is all that there is knowable? Do you think science has all the answers? What would be evidence that science has an answer that is actually based on a truth? To me, the answer would be that a problem that we all acknowledge that we have would be solved. That would be evidence. I'm talking about in our experience. In our experience, the problem would be no more. But see, we are accustomed to monetizing everything. This is a mercantile mindset that predominates this particular, I'm going to call it realm. I'm going to talk about the the concepts that predominate on this planet. Okay. And I'm going to suggest that life exists on other places. However, if we have bound ourselves to conventions of thinking in this particular place, then guess what? We are bound. It binds us. What we cling to then clings to us. And I'm talking about from a thinking standpoint, from a behavioral standpoint. To liberate ourselves, we have to change our ways of thinking. Absolutely. New paradigms, absolutely. Modern day science is absolutely. And the point basically, the scientists, the people who are making, you might say, quote unquote, a living. Well, they are still on that. And the people who, I want to say, profit, so to speak, they're profiting, and their mode of profit is frankly meaningless to the true nature of who we are. Our spiritual nature transcends the physicality and the physical realm. And yet we hand over our children early, from the time they show up, from the time they start sucking air. We tend to hand them over to people who are, you could say, indoctrinated with this way of thinking, and they start the process of of shock, consciousness shock, and dissociation from your sense of well-being, your sense of who you are. They create, uh, it's not a post-traumatic stress syndrome. They create an ongoing traumatic stress syndrome unless and until it is overcome by a whole lot of love, and frankly a whole lot of, I'm going to say, vibrational remediation, where you begin to counteract the effects of what has been done. And I'll say of what we have allowed. But essentially, the consciousness of the being has been disrupted, so to speak. And you can't do, you can't be coherent in your thinking, and more so in your power. See, we grow up thinking we have no power. We grow up thinking we have no authority. And ultimately, people, if you listen to them, they'll tell you you don't. They'll tell you you need to listen to me because I'm the authority, I'm the expert, etc. These are the things, the ideas that are funneled into our minds. And that's even before you get into the education system. So these are all errors in thinking. These are errors that are followed up by behavior. And essentially, we're paying the price of those errors. And I'm not saying this from a consequence standpoint, I'm not saying it from a punishment standpoint. I'm simply saying that, first of all, when you live in error, you will pay the consequence in it. And I don't want to, I'm going to say it, but still soften it some. You live in error, you die by those same errors, but you don't die. That's the softening of it. However, you keep the limitation until you stop doing the error. That's the issue. And the point basically is that there are some amazing, first of all, you are amazing as you are. We are all amazing as we are, particularly in our constitution. We are energy. We are integral parts of something that is infinite. You could call it God, and these are just words, but the word infinite means limitless. There are places that would blow your mind, that you can go, where you can be. And actually, the transition that is referred to as death is necessary to be able to shift out of the vibrational situation that we put ourselves in. But you're not liberated simply by leaving the form. Leaving the form gives you the ability of rejuvenation, of reset, of uh, revitalization, of recreation. And I'm not saying necessarily of the form that you're familiar with. If you're talking in infinite possibility, Uh, do you think that you have the ability to be whatever your consciousness, you're seeking to evolve your consciousness permits you to do, and to go where your heart would love to go. People wonder about peace, for example. I'll tell you right now, war is dumb. There's nothing intelligent about war, and I'll tell you why. Some people think, well, you get better, and you evolve, etc. And what do? You get better at destruction. Okay, war is mutually assured trauma. You get a few people together, you get groups of people together, and you tell a few lies, you tell a few distortions, and you get enough people who don't know their own sovereignty to go in and start uh, trying to destroy each other. For what? For what real benefit? The people who are sending them to those places, they're sending them. They're not there holding this stuff. They're sending someone they think of as less than themselves to do all this quote unquote work. I'm ready for all of those things to occur. Jack, I see you saying the unknown is going to be known. Uh, I suggest that um, the known people must still open themselves up. People have believed a whole bunch of distortions in facts. And in some respects, an awakening to the distortion and acknowledging of the distortion, and therefore a rejection thereof, is appropriate, frankly, for each person, because each is creating their experience. So yeah, the known is going to be known. I agree. It's going to. And the cool thing is that this is a time. What I'm suggesting here is very possibly, and time will tell, is that uh, more people will begin to embrace some of the higher and built-in aspects of who they are. And I'm not talking just love. I'm talking courage. I'm talking. I'm talking being the person that they dream themselves to be, the best person that they can imagine themselves to be, lifting their own spirits. Because a lot of people are in low spirits, and that is part of what would benefit from some transformation. It's within us all to embrace and to embody. No one is unable to do this, but many people have set that aside, and they're paying the price. So these are some of the things that I'm quite happy. You say it's going to touch. It's going to be tough to change their minds. This talk right here is exactly what is needed. I so much thank you, because it has to come from within. Now, some months ago, I created a chart which I referred to as a map of consciousness, because ultimately, consciousness and energy are interconnected. And the the fact is, this is where science has confirmed this, that energy cannot be destroyed. Energy is what is. Energy permeates all things, and all things are energy. And I'm saying from on all levels. That includes what you can see and what you can't see. I'm talking about our thoughts. Everything has an energetic aspect to it. If it didn't, it couldn't exist. And ultimately, there is a realm, there is a space, there's a place for that which we can't see, we can't feel and touch, but it nonetheless exists and it has an energetic property to it. Now, we as life and units of life, we're connected to the infinite. We are part of the infinite, and each one of us is creating an infinite string of moments that we refer to as our lifetime that's connected to this physical form. But when I say that we don't, quote unquote, die, it's because we are part of that energetic. The physical form is by its own purpose is temporary. We have chosen, because of assumptions made hundreds and thousands of years ago, to decide that the form itself is the being, and that all of this information associated with it from is all, I call it exteriorism. Okay, is the demographer is happy with all this because they can classify and categorize and everything else. But the from the cause, these are all results, these are all effects. The cause is from inside. That cause is inviolate, indestructible. This is an effect, and this can be impacted by changes in our thinking and changes in our behavior, changes in our inputs, for example. Restoration of balance, because the main problems that we have, even from a physiological standpoint, have to do one with a lack of balance that we have habituated, I will say. Boy, when I walk through a supermarket today and I look at the things that, frankly, used to be normal, and when you start looking at and seeing just how little real value to the form is present. I mean, I'm even looking at toilet paper yesterday or day before yesterday, and how they continue to give you less and less and less of what you were used to, and then charge you the same or more for it. It seems to be that people are about just finding out or creating new ways to give you less of really what you need. Because again, we talk about the mercantile predominance of things. And I'm not saying, someone would say, oh, this is just greed. It's not greed. The people who are doing this are under the same pressures that you and I are, quite frankly. Ultimately, we have to come up with new ways to bring a restoration of flow into our lives so that we have enough and that we don't care. Let them charge what they charge. I'd rather have enough to handle whatever it is my need is while I'm here. See, because if you start realizing and embracing the concept that, the exit is just that, it's a way to move out of this particular, I'm going to call it milieu, but it is not the end of who I am. And the truth is, when you bring that into your consciousness, you start realizing that it doesn't even have to be traumatic, painful, or anything else. We start getting into the habit of putting out into our experience, into our interactions with others, that which we want to come back, the things that we welcome to return to us. Uh, yeah, ask the question, if we're sitting there slinging arrows of thought back and forth, if we're on the polarized track, people are saying some really unfortunate things to each other and about each other, and they are alienating themselves, but also they are using their power quite, I'm just going to say, without wisdom. That's the way I can say that. Yeah, processed foods. Yep, when you look at the schematics of a supermarket, oh my goodness, it's around processed foods. The processes are virtually everywhere, and it's just fascinating. Uh, First time, $7. My goodness, yeah, probably a dozen eggs, right? So it's like we're seeing these things happen, and uh, a lot of it, though, is that we are allowing. In a way of speaking, here's an election situation coming up, and people are back and forth of the particular candidates. But has anyone noticed that neither of the candidates actually have a vision that has any true meaning to us? I'm talking about to the American people. I dare say that taking steps and making it a priority to do one thing, first of all, to have peaceful interaction with others. And I'm talking about, I can't do what these, I can't speak to what some other country is doing, but I know one thing: we cannot support it. Here, we're sitting here as a country, so to speak, which touts itself to be one of the most, how do you want to say, prosperous, wealthy, so to speak. Excuse me. And has anyone looked at the debt clock lately? How is it representation of the American people when legislators will send billions and billions of dollars to another country, particularly to foment war and support war? I'm just asking the question: where's the intelligence there? Where's the fiscal responsibility? And where are American people actually saying something about it, taking umbrage to it? You see, there are certain things that that I say American people, at least what you do is you step up, you speak up. People are simply, I don't know if they even see it. So it's like, you want to change things? You got to articulate the change that you want. And people have to be talking about things that matter. The things that people are talking about really don't matter as far as I'm concerned. Well, I'll tell you this, and I appreciate what you're saying, even uh, about Mr. Trump. And I'll say it that way. I think there are options. However, neither the other or him go nearly far enough. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, when they start trying to say, well, they're going to get you some meds at a lower cost. Excuse me. There are things that need to be done to our soils. There are changes that need to be made to our agricultural practices, for example, so that there is higher nutrient value in not only in the soil but in the crops. There are ways to do this that are known, but ultimately they're not being, I'm just going to say, demanded. Now, if people and when people stop buying this crap that is being presented to them, and when they start also calling the lobbyists and the representatives to task for frankly creating and going into these what I call sweetheart deals, what the lobbyists and the legislators don't realize is that there's no escape for them either. If they don't ensure that that practices are in place that assist farmers in the responsible use of water, and I say responsible and efficient use of water, the responsive and efficient um, infusion of nutrients and the distribution of nutrients into the soils, for example, then There's not going to be any exclusive clubs where they can get what they need and others, well, will not. I'll tell you this. We talk about, again, there's no death. All right. There is exit, and exit will happen. The thing that people don't seem to appreciate, and this is why realizing that there is only life, however, there is consciousness. And if you don't change your consciousness, this is where the real magic can happen. But if you hold on to the present way of consciousness, as is the norm today, as in the is the norm in this time and space, whoever holds on to that, well, that will be what they return to. And the truth of the matter is, I don't have to care about what they do. It's only what matters is what they do. This is really, really cool. So, as we start to realize that we are infinite beings and we create an experience through the state of consciousness, and consciousness is subject to evolution, to expansion. It's similar to bandwidth. Who remembers 300 baud modems? Okay. Who remembers the move from 300 baud modems to 1200 baud modems and then 9600 baud modems and on and on and on? I remember those things. And in a way of speaking, you talk about bandwidth, you talk about expansion. Consciousness does the same thing. You want more freedom? Freedom, true freedom, is spiritual freedom. There's no freedom when all you're looking for is money, and all you get excited about is the next deal, because you can't take any of it with you. Your body and all the other stuff, it is meaningless. But the knowledge that you take about yourself, the love that you unleash, the wisdom that you exercise, the kindness that you actually express from one person to the next, they go with you and they open up more channels and levels of reality and joy, joyful and freedom. Okay. Well, here's the deal. By telling everyone everything was a lie, then I'm reading you, Darren. Um, so many have to go through the process of anger, hurt, and then healing. Well, something. I would say that that's natural. Sometimes, like I say, when you hear the truth, one of your first responses to hearing the truth is pissed off. Okay, you say but the next thing after that, you start thinking, "Whoa, cool." you know, it don't have to be long. We don't have to stay in a place of dis-ease. We don't have to stay in a place of resentment. Resentment is a low state of energy. It's a higher state of um, dissonance. Okay, in your vibe. Okay, and so in a way of speaking, you start being grateful that you're no longer under that spell, because ultimately people are under a spell. They think that they're limited and they believe themselves to be true, and then they perpetuate it because that's what someone told them. These are concepts that we've passed on from time to time, from lifetime to lifetime, perhaps. We've been graded on this stuff, after a certain, certain amount of insults and the consequences of those insults. Then this is all ignorance that we are washing away from ourselves, and we're helping each other do the same thing. So spiritual freedom actually means something. We have these conversations or discussions about freedom, and it doesn't mean much to. I mean, it's an intellectual conversation because oftentimes we think we need a bigger gun, We think we need a more powerful this or that. We need more bombs and stuff like that, and that's protecting freedom. Excuse me. These are things that actually don't add up. They don't make sense, and they're not true. So these solutions all exist outside of a person's heart. They exist in a mind and through a mind that is, again, in a low state. We tend to think that technology is the answer to virtually everything. I suggest that knowledge is the answer, wisely applied. There's a big, big difference. We use technology as a way to make a buck, oftentimes. I mean, how many times when you heard the people who are preparing those chemical solutions for distribution, and they were talking about the profits that they were going to make. I mean, who's watching or running ads on television today talking about this and that is going to be around? Well, excuse me, who made you the soothsayer? See, there's a motive, and the motive is mercantile. The spirit has no such motive. Energy has no such motive. Now, energy doesn't, div- um, I'm going to say, what's the word? It's not that it doesn't distinguish. There's no preference. There's no there's no energy associated with making a buck for sure. Energy is everything. Energy has no need whatsoever. Now, as creative beings, we are not just creative beings, we are creator beings. And we are free to create, and there are methods and means to create something different. And Nikola Tesla, he had that statement, if when you know I don't know if it's the secrets or whatever of energy, frequency, and vibration, you got the keys to the world. And I totally agree. The point basically is first of all, discovering, learning, or embracing that concept as a truth. And the second thing is learning how to do it consciously. And that is a process. This is not something someone's going to spoon feed you. It's like you apply your own efforts, your own energy, your own interest to it, and you follow wherever the truth takes you. And you might say before the truth takes you, you follow your love. You love to learn, you love to improve things, you truly want to make a difference, and you want to apply it in your own life first. You are your own guinea pig, so to speak. And as you start to succeed at making these types of changes in your own life, now you become able to share this with others. And in the truth of the matter is, it's not that you got to tell them. Oftentimes they're going to ask you, well, what did you do? Or how did you do that? And now we've got a basis for some interaction. So, hey, hey, Pascal, how you doing? uh, I missed your conference call the other. Well, I guess it was last night. It was while I was sleeping, but as you can see, I'm starting to. Well, I'm happy to be doing this live stream, but I'm able to see. My eyesight now is as good now or better than it was with my eyeglasses before. I got my eyes are still adjusting, and I've got these lenses inside with the cataract surgery. However, I am thinking I'm going to segue into just also a thought. I'm planning to do I don't know what to call it, a town hall, or I want to schedule one sometime soon. Look what I got here. I've got, oh, can I see it here? I've got this virtual background. So my PW50 here, Vortex unit, I can only see it in some kind of ways. I have another background here that I can pull down. But bottom line is, I want to do we're going to schedule uh, not just a town hall, but probably a series of town halls on water and on these vortex units, uh, going through what I experienced with the cataracts, as well as the reduction in um, my weight, which tomorrow is my weigh day, and so my weight is starting to go back up, and I'm happy to be doing that. But I'm going to do and schedule a town hall, and what it is, what I'm going to be doing is I want to kickstart sales of these things. This is um, I th- I think this is a game changer as a vortex, as a way of helping more people not only benefit from what vortexes do, but get their own aha moments. And so this is an affordable way to do it, where you can apply and you can start benefiting from what these do to water. And I'll say this without making any claims whatsoever. The optometrist, I've had three follow up um, examinations. They want to get me to have reading glasses and stuff like that. However, they've also been doing post op, seeing how things are. And I'll tell you this, I may ask the optometrist to send me the images. But while I've gone, like I said, three times, and what they normally do is that they go into and they look inside the eye, and what they typically find is that the arteries and veins that are inside, person, they've gone through whatever they've gone through, or if there's anything like what I did, and so they get the cataracts and they figure, okay, you're out of the woods, right? Well, uh, the optometrist looks into the eyes and they start looking at the condition of again, the veins and the arteries. And oftentimes uh, they're in some state or level of, I'm just going to say, um, well, they're in a questionable state, okay, as far as how they are. They're not healthy. And I'm happy to say that when she looked into mine, the arteries and veins were in fine shape. The inside of my eyes were clear, and there was like no worries whatsoever. And I told her about the vortexing and vortex water, because I did do essentially what I would call a water transfusion, and that's part of what precipitated the reductions as far as my body weight. But I did a few other things, and I live in a space that there are no mistakes, and so this was something that, well, in no way I would want to do that. But once it happened, I was able to get through it and still talk about it. Okay, so I learned quite a bit. I got a lot of insights on not only on the water, on physiology, but also life, and also the things that I need to do to rebuild and restore and reinvigorate my form. So I'm doing a whole bunch of things, like my new breakfast of champions or raw oysters. Okay, I have oysters. I'm not oysters. I have an oyster first thing in the morning, as well as an oyster before I go to bed, and I have other things that I do to start giving my body the things that it needs to rebuild and replenish itself and restore. Um, Time will tell how those things work out, but that's kind of what's been going on. So I am happy to have done this. I'm certainly happy to have found you, or you found me, Pascal. We will set up a time to chat more as well. And I'm going to. I have an associate in Canada. I just sent him some PW50s. He came down from Calgary and to visit me a few months ago, and he bought one of these things. Oh, now you can see it. Oh, cool. So he bought one of these things, and he went up and started talking to people about it, and people more and more got interested in it. I mean, even to the point that as my inventory, my stock went down, yeah, he got to a place where he wanted to buy everything that I had. So what we're going to do is, I had not, well, it's not a point. You don't anticipate your eyesight going away, and to some extent, you don't even have. You're not sure if you can anticipate still being around. And so, at the very least, now I see reason for both. My eyesight is back, and you know, I'm still, I don't know everything there is about life, but I know I'm here and I know I want to talk more about things. It's not just the vortex generators. I do want to talk about the existential stuff, because in truth, that is actually even more important than the vortex units. However, I do want to uh, establish, first of all, the interest in our vortex units, in especially our small ones. There will be people who will buy our larger ones, and they will benefit from them. But the PW50 is one, we can people can use these in their homes, but they can use them in other places far, far with greater. I'm just going to say there's so many applications for these things. And in fact, my associate up in Canada, he started sending me pictures of different systems that are processing water. And in the processing of that water, he could see how adding a vortex unit, a PW50, could go into the line to literally help improve the effectiveness of that particular system. Water is ubiquitous to an extent that few people comprehend. We tend to stay within our own lanes of familiar information and practices, not realizing there's a huge, huge, huge universe of other places where this little activity that it does with water will help other situations where life is involved. So, what I want to do, particularly, I'll say it here before I check out for now, and that is we're going to have like I say, a town hall, and I'm going to have as many as I have, but that we do. But I want to establish, and I'm going to ask people for some patience with us. It shouldn't take long, but I want to just get the first 100 orders. I want 100 retail orders of PW50s. Now, it that achieving that will trigger something else that is of importance to me. You don't have to limit yourself to getting a PW50. If you have commercial, if you have whole homes, if you've got pools, if you've got greenhouses, if you've got hen houses or with eggs, and there are just so many places where putting one of these on the line will improve the conditions. But the bottom line is that I and we, my associate in Canada, but also my partner in Australia, will be on the line and we will talk about it. We'll answer questions and we'll invite you to join the fray for one thing. And needless to say, I we may do a countdown to when we've got 100 orders, because that's a that's an important milestone, at least for us. And we'll ask your indulgence, because it may take a week, it may take only a day or two. I don't know, I have tended to stay away from the concepts of selling product, but ultimately, I've certainly been an advocate for and am an advocate for the changes that vortexing does when people deploy them. And I do realize that we can't resolve any of these questions in our heads. We have to be willing to go ahead and do these. Buy them, install them, but ask questions beforehand. And that's where I'd like to help people come up with their own answers. So I think what I'm going to do, we're going to talk more about the existential. Uh, I'm going to suggest that I do have a Substack, which is adamabraham.substack.com. I'm still, well, I'm just getting to the point where I'm inclined to make posts again. And I think Substack is a bit more of a protected space where you can say whatever it is you've got to say versus having an overseer look over and question what you're saying. You can actually and literally do live streams on Substack itself. I can do podcasts on Substack itself, which would never show up here at all. And for paid subscribers, maybe that's what I'll do. There are a few things that I've actually said here in this one in this talk that I don't know. We'll see what happens as far as its passing muster. Maybe I'm making much ado about nothing. However, there are things that I can say within Substack, and I want to say that I feel need to be considered. All right. It's not so much about me telling you what's what. It's more so about me saying how I see things and suggesting to you, and I can go into my reasoning for things. But they suggest different ways of responding to stimuli that we have grown accustomed to simply listening to, hearing, observing, and not taking umbrage with. And the thing about it, you don't have to destroy, you don't have to shout or anything else to take umbrage with something. Quite frankly, that's the least effective way of doing things. You actually present some logic to people as to why what they are doing is dumb. Okay, especially expecting us to actually do it and follow their advice when it's dumb. So when we get to that place, we will start to change things in ways that aren't being done right now. People are doing all this high level conversation about this crisis and that, and they're dealing with the cosmos. You know something? I'm going to say what can be considered the cosmos don't give a flying blank about what we do about different things. Okay? The issue is what are we doing right here that we can change, that we can stop because it's dumb? We can stop supporting. We can actually suggest other ways of doing things, and we can replace people who are just doing these things to fill their own coffers. That's what needs to be put a stop to. So I'm disinclined to debate all these high level things which have no real meaning, as especially since people remain thinking that they are the form, that they quote unquote die or can be killed. Now, there are factors that involve all of these things because like attracts like, and if you think something strongly enough, you bring it to yourself. Okay. That's even if no one else cares. Okay. You bring it to yourself because we're talking limitless supply, infinite possibility. If there is limitless supply, infinite possibility, then and inevitable exiting. See, death is what we think of is not the end of existence. It's a simple, inevitable exit from this realm. That's just it. We've put all the other meaning on that stuff. So I will talk about those things because it's not going to happen by saying it once. It's going to require context, etc. But as you start to embrace the concept as having some truth to it, that truth will start to encourage you to set yourself free. And that's what we're looking for. So with that, I'm done. If you see some value in what I've said, I certainly encourage you to subscribe, and I thank you for it. Gosh, I have a QR code that's been sitting here on the screen. That is to a little book that I wrote and published in the year 2000. And because I prided myself in not being a promoter, and that's not, I'm just kind of saying this, I still have a supply of these books. And so I've changed the price to what I consider 2024 prices. It was initially priced at 1995 in US dollars, and it is now 39.95 in US dollars. And the point is, they are in cartons. They have never been opened in terms of the cartons, and it would be my honor to sign the book, to dedicate it, or to you know what I mean, to someone that you care about, and to you, and to send it to you, because it begins and it helps each of us plant the seeds of that infinite state that is ours, always has been, and always will be. We have to plant a seed before it will grow in our own minds. This is a way to do it, and this is my way, and this is my contribution to that happening. I say so till next time. I'm just going to bid you peace, be well, and be prosperous. We'll talk about other ways of doing things, other changes. I will also share more about my physical journey. It is of interest, I believe, at least. But for now, I love you all.